There are 33 engines on that first stage. There was a stage separation, and now the spacecraft, the second stage, is making its way across the globe where it's going to splash down.
Something just happened in Texas that no one thought was possible. SpaceX's Starship Flight 11 defied every prediction, completing a flawless sequence that even stunned NASA engineers. From 33 roaring engines to a perfect hot stage and controlled splashdowns, it was a flight that silenced critics and changed the game overnight. What exactly did SpaceX pull off this time? And why was Elon Musk's reaction so unexpected? Join us. The moment SpaceX crossed the line. It was supposed to be just another test. Instead, it became the moment the world realized SpaceX had crossed a line that no one else dared to approach. This October 13th, Flight 11 of Starship roared to life over the Texas coast, its 33 Raptor engines igniting in perfect sequence. The ground shook as 16 million pounds of thrust lifted the tallest rocket ever built into a clear morning sky. For a few minutes, silence fell across the control room. After years of explosions, lost boosters, and failed re-entries, Starship gave the world an incredible performance. The separation was flawless, the booster returned to the Gulf under total control, and the upper stage hit its target zone with data streaming perfectly to the ground. What exactly happened during those 8 minutes that left the aerospace world speechless? To understand why Flight 11 stunned everyone, you need to know what it actually achieved. At T0, all 33 Raptor engines ignited in near-perfect unison. That may sound simple, but it's one of the hardest things in rocket engineering. Each Raptor uses what's called full-flow staged combustion, meaning it burns both fuel, in this case liquid methane, and oxidizer, or liquid oxygen, in two small pre-burners before mixing them in the main chamber. This design makes the engine more powerful and efficient, but it's extremely complicated to run. If the timing between the engines is off by even a fraction of a second, pressure waves can ripple through the cluster and cause an explosion. Earlier flights struggled with this problem, as some engines failed to ignite while others shut down mid-flight. But during Flight 11, all 33 Raptors started cleanly and ran smoothly. Engineers watching the live data said the graphs looked flat, meaning temperatures, chamber pressures, and turbine speeds stayed so consistent and on point they could hardly believe them. For the first time, SpaceX achieved full control of all 33 engines working together, and in rocketry, that's about as perfect as it gets. Next came one of the riskiest maneuvers ever attempted: hot staging. In most rockets, the booster's engines shut off before the upper stage ignites, but SpaceX does the opposite. It starts the upper stage engines while the booster is still attached to save time and fuel. On the flip side, this is also very dangerous. If the timing is wrong, the upper stage's exhaust can blast into the booster and destroy both sections. To prevent this, SpaceX designed a special ring between the stages that lets the exhaust escape safely. Flight 11 marked the 10th successful hot stage in a row, something no other rocket company has ever done. The footage was breathtaking, showing the upper stage engines flaring bright gold as the booster drifted away beneath it. Once separated, the super heavy booster flipped itself 180 degrees in midair to face back toward Earth. Using its 4 massive titanium grid fins, it steered through the atmosphere like a guided dart. Then came the landing sequence, where 13 engines reignited to slow its fall, then 5, then 3, bringing it to a gentle splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico. This success gives SpaceX the green light to pursue something a lot more daring. In the future, Musk's company plans to catch boosters mid-air using giant robotic arms on the launch tower. For that to work, the booster must land with pinpoint precision. Flight 11 hit its target within about 30 meters, a level of accuracy that suggests tower catching could soon become reality. While the booster was returning, the upper stage continued its journey. It reached orbital speed and released several mock satellites using a new side hatch deployment system. Instead of deploying payloads from the top, like Falcon 9 does, Starship releases them from the side. This might seem like a small change, but it's faster and allows more satellites to be launched in fewer orbits, which is perfect for massive constellations like Starlink. After deployment, the upper stage reignited its engines for a deorbit burn, flipping into its belly first re-entry position. As it plunged through the atmosphere, the camera feed showed bright plasma forming around the vehicle, glowing red and orange as it slowed from more than 20 times the speed of sound. The heat shield tiles held up well, though a few were lost during descent. But unlike earlier flights that ended in explosions, This time the re-entry stayed stable and controllable all the way down, and Flight 11 delivered more data than any Starship flight before it. All in all, Flight 11 proved that Starship can fly a complete mission, from liftoff to re-entry without a major failure. It confirmed that 33-engine operation is reliable, that hot staging works safely and efficiently, and that Starship's heat shield and re-entry systems can handle the stress of orbital flight. But there are still big steps ahead. The rocket hasn't yet shown that it can be quickly reused. It hasn't performed a tower catch, which will be essential for fast turnaround launches. It hasn't tested propellant transfer in orbit, a key requirement for sending humans to the Moon or Mars. Most importantly, it's not yet certified to carry people. Making these things happen will take time, but the success of Flight 11 is a positive sign. The total flight time was 48 minutes and 19 seconds, during which SpaceX collected roughly 300 terabytes of flight data. This includes measurements on temperature, pressure, vibration, engine behavior, and aerodynamic stress. This information will feed directly into the design of the next Starship versions, which are already being built. As for reactions from the world of aerospace, NASA officials quietly praised the achievement, but warned that consistency would be the real challenge, while Boeing and Blue Origin also issued brief congratulations. Meanwhile, engineers across the industry admitted that SpaceX's pace of progress was unlike anything they'd seen before. In just a few years, the company has built an entire manufacturing ecosystem that can produce, launch, and rebuild rockets faster than most countries can approve a single test. That's what truly caught the industry off guard, the speed at which they're learning and improving. Now, Starship has become a serious contender for the future of space travel. Even NASA now depends on it for the Artemis moon missions. Investors who once doubted Musk's vision are beginning to realize he might actually make reusable, mass-scale rocketry a reality. And Elon Musk's response showed that for him, this was only the beginning. The secrets behind SpaceX's struggle. Flight 11's success was a stunning reversal from the string of disasters that came before it. Just 2 years ago, SpaceX was struggling to keep Starship in one piece for more than a few minutes. Tanks burst during fueling tests, engines tore themselves apart on startup, and one booster ended its flight by detonating over the Gulf of Mexico so violently that shockwaves broke windows miles away. So, what changed? From the beginning, SpaceX's approach to Starship testing has been brutal but effective. Instead of spending years on ground simulations before flying, the company flies early, flies often, and learns from what goes wrong. Engineers call this iterative design, but in practice, it means building rockets knowing they'll probably explode. Each failed flight is analyzed in obsessive detail. High-speed footage, sensor data, metal fatigue samples, and even sound wave analysis from microphones placed along the launch pad. When Booster 7 disintegrated during a static fire in 2022, the cause wasn't treated as a disaster, but as valuable information. It revealed subtle vibration patterns that led to redesigned engine mounts. This fast learning cycle, design, test, fail, fix, repeat, became the heart of SpaceX's engineering culture. But there's also a human side to that story that rarely makes headlines. The engineers working at Starbase live through failure after failure, often pulling 18-hour days in one of the harshest testing environments on Earth. After Flight 4 exploded on ascent, many said morale hit rock bottom, yet within weeks, they were back rebuilding. SpaceX's leadership encourages a culture of transparency, where not just their successes, but also all of their missteps are public, dissected, and documented. This builds resilience, and the emphasis on constantly learning and moving forward produces a workforce that's much faster paced than any traditional aerospace team. That's how, within less than 3 years, SpaceX turned a program full of shattered prototypes into a rocket capable of near-orbital precision. Still, SpaceX can't launch whenever it wants. Every flight must be approved by the Federal Aviation Administration, which issues launch licenses based on environmental impact, safety zones, and debris recovery plans. After the early explosions scattered metal fragments and ash across protected wetlands near Boca Chica, the FAA required SpaceX to submit detailed cleanup and wildlife restoration plans before granting further permissions. The environmental concerns are also real. Each launch scours the concrete pad with thousands of degrees of exhaust, sending dust and debris into nearby habitats. Coastal erosion around the launch site has increased, forcing SpaceX to rebuild seawalls and drainage systems multiple times. Local communities in Port Isabel and South Padre Island have complained about shockwaves and sonic booms, prompting new noise monitoring rules. Even though SpaceX has repaired much of the damage, these environmental reviews can take months. And then there's NASA, which is perhaps the most important stakeholder in Starship's future. NASA is depending on a modified version of Starship, known as the Human Landing System, to carry astronauts to the surface of the Moon under the Artemis program. That means NASA's standards now shape SpaceX's work, helping ensure the spacecraft can fly safely enough for human life. NASA requires multiple redundant safety systems, which includes everything from crew abort mechanisms to life support, backup avionics, and proven engine restart reliability. Before any astronaut steps inside, the system must complete a series of certification flights, each verified through a detailed review process involving thousands of individual data points. The timeline pressure is enormous. The Artemis 3 mission, currently scheduled for the late 2020s, depends on Starship being ready to refuel in orbit, land on the Moon, and return to lunar orbit safely. A single delay in testing can ripple through years of planning, and lost months can quickly turn into lost years. Now, there is growing speculation that SpaceX might simplify the Starship mission architecture to meet deadlines by proposing scaled-down missions that use partial refueling or smaller payloads to save time. That might keep Artemis on track, but it produces greater risks. And that brings us to the most difficult technical hurdle left: orbital refueling. It sounds simple. 2 starships meet in orbit, connect, and pump liquid methane and oxygen between them. But the reality is far more complex. In orbit, there's no gravity to help the fuel settle. The tanks must use special pumps and pressure systems to move propellant between vehicles without bubbles or boil-off. The temperatures involved are extreme, hundreds of degrees below zero, and keeping that cryogenic fuel stable for hours is one of the hardest challenges in aerospace engineering. The docking itself requires centimeter-level precision and full autonomy, since radio delay makes remote control impossible. SpaceX expects that a single lunar mission might need up to a dozen tanker flights to fill one Starship for the journey. Each of those tankers must launch, rendezvous, dock, and transfer fuel without losing more than a small percentage to evaporation. That's why, even after Flight 11's success, the company still faces its toughest test yet. The ability to perform large-scale cryogenic fuel transfer in orbit is the missing link between what Starship can do now and what it must do to carry humans to the Moon. Until that's solved, the impossible still lies ahead, but maybe no longer out of reach. Starship's triumph and its hidden cost. After the success of Flight 11, SpaceX is proving that the rules of spaceflight itself can be rewritten, and what was once a series of risky experiments is now starting to look like the foundation of a new launch economy. Today, the cost of getting 1 kilogram into orbit using traditional rockets is still limited by expendable designs, or rockets that can only fly once. Every launch destroys millions of dollars in hardware. SpaceX has already changed that equation with Falcon 9's reusability, cutting the average launch price to a fraction of what competitors charge. But Starship pushes that logic to its limit. If SpaceX can consistently reuse both the booster and upper stage, the marginal cost, or the cost of one extra flight after the vehicle is built, could drop to levels never seen before in aerospace history. That kind of cost reduction goes beyond lowering prices. Large satellites, deep space probes, lunar cargo, and even entire space station modules could be launched for the price of a small satellite mission today. It's the same pattern seen in aviation. For governments, this could mean routine lunar transport rather than one-off missions. For commercial operators, it could open the door to new types of business in orbit, from manufacturing and construction to on-demand satellite servicing. In other terms, SpaceX is effectively building an industrial supply chain between Earth and orbit. But the near-term picture is more complicated. Flight 11 marks the symbolic retirement of version 2 of Starship. the prototype generation that proved the fundamentals. Now, all attention shifts to version 3, the model that must turn those fundamentals into a true orbital system. Version 3 will include several major upgrades. Docking adapters for orbital refueling, improved Raptor 3 engines with higher thrust and fewer moving parts, stronger heat shield tiles with new mounting systems, and reinforced structures to handle tower catching. It will also incorporate upgraded avionics and communications hardware designed for fully autonomous docking and landing operations. However, with new capability comes new risks. The development schedule for version 3 is already tight, with test flights expected to begin within the next year. Any major setback, like a booster explosion, an engine anomaly, or a failed heat shield test, could delay progress by months or even years. That's because SpaceX's production and testing pipeline depends on sequential learning. Each flight must happen before the next version can be finalized. There are also supply chain and infrastructure pressures that can't be ignored. Raptor engines, though increasingly standardized, are still complex pieces of machinery requiring specialized materials and precision manufacturing. Any bottleneck in production could slow down the entire launch cadence. On top of that, every major design change, even internal wiring adjustments or software updates, requires new documentation for regulators and sometimes new FAA licensing. SpaceX thrives on moving fast, but the legal process around rocketry doesn't. Delays in certification, environmental reviews, or even weather-related launch pauses can compound into lost months of progress. Still, the strategic importance of Starship's progress goes far beyond launch schedules. SpaceX is constructing the backbone of a global infrastructure network, a network in which the Starlink satellite constellation already provides internet coverage to more than 70 countries, while relying heavily on frequent, high-capacity launches to stay ahead of competitors. With Starship, SpaceX could deploy thousands of additional satellites in a single launch, drastically lowering the cost of expanding coverage and replacing older satellites. That scale of deployment would make Starlink one of the most powerful private communication networks in history, capable of influencing global internet access, military communications, and even national policy. The geopolitical implications are enormous. In regions where governments control internet access tightly, Starlink has already been used as a tool of information independence, from supporting communications in Ukraine to disaster recovery in isolated areas. With Starship's mass launch ability, that influence could grow exponentially. SpaceX would hold a kind of soft power that few private companies have ever possessed. The power to connect or disconnect entire regions of the planet with a single decision. And since the satellites are launched from US soil, the system indirectly becomes part of America's strategic infrastructure, strengthening its influence in areas where traditional diplomacy struggles. That's why other nations are racing to build their own equivalents, though none yet match the speed or scale of SpaceX's launch capability. Other launch providers, including China's Long March series, Europe's Ariane 6, and Blue Origin's New Glenn, each offer specific advantages, such as reliability, payload precision, or government backing, but none can currently compete with Starship's projected lift capacity or reusability model. Most rockets today can lift between 10 and 25 tons to orbit. Starship aims for more than 150. That's a redefinition of what one rocket can accomplish. And even if competitors match Starship's technical design, catching up to its manufacturing speed and launch cadence could take a decade. Flight 11's success widened that gap even further, putting pressure on agencies and private companies worldwide to rethink their strategies. Yet for all the global attention, Elon Musk's own reaction to the flight was almost unsettling in its restraint. No lengthy live stream celebration, no dramatic speech, no claims of victory. Just a brief message on X, calling the flight a solid step forward. Why so calm after such a historic success? Because for Musk, Flight 11 is just a stepping stone. He knows that the hardest part of the journey is still ahead. Building the infrastructure for orbital refueling, mastering reusability at scale, and proving human safety to NASA and beyond. The tension between hype and reality has always followed SpaceX, but Flight 11 blurred that line more than ever before. The impossible now feels within reach, but it's the next few flights that will decide whether this was the beginning of a new era, or just the calm before the next explosion. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Click the next video for more exciting content.